everyone. So welcome back to my channel. So right now we are going to have another new topic here in Introduction to Psychology or General Psychology. And right now we are going to talk about the biological process in human development part 1. Again, I'm your professor here, Mariana Sinin Angalwan from the Psychology Department. So, um, so in our previous lesson, we were able to talk about the introduction of what the psychology is all about. Now we are going to officially start this lesson or this subject with the biological process in human development. So this would be two parts. So this would be the part 1. So now let's go to the next slide. Alright, so for our topic objectives, we are going to talk about the following. So at the end of this module, you should be able to first identify the influence of human development to behavior and understand the mechanisms of heredity rather. So there are two factors that influence human development. So let's go to it one by one. So the first one is the heredity, which is through our genes, and the second one is through our environment. So we're going to talk about first the heredity, but for you to easily understand what heredity is all about, it's about our body and what are the functions of our genes and its effect to our behavior. So let's go to it one by one. So in heredity, heredity is the transmission of traits from parents to offspring. So heredity in here, it entails to the traits that our parents have and how it was transmitted to us. So that's actually a simple way to explain what heredity is. So it means that it is the transmission of their traits to us. So it's either through our hair color, through our height, sometimes also our body, but how our body built is. So for example, if our parents are slim, so we have a huge tendency that we may become slim as well. Our the skin color of our parents, of course. Like for example, my mom has a lighter skin than my dad. So that's why I'm a bit lighter than my dad as well, because I got the genes of the genes of my mom. So that's one of it. So heredity actually started through conception. So every 28 days, a female ovulates and releases an egg cell to a fallopian tube. So as you all know, we have the 28 days in here. So it's like what I've mentioned, because 28 days is the menstrual cycle of a woman, so a female. Okay, so in every 28 days, we release an egg cell, and then that when it doesn't meet any sperm cell, conception did not happen. So that's when menstruation actually happens. But in here, so just to begin with, every 28 days, a woman releases an egg cell. So at the height of copopulation, the male parent releases sperm that's 300 to 500 million inside the female's vagina. So this is due to, because of the, what they call this, the coitus. Due to coitus, the sperm cell or the male partner releases sperm cells through the vagina or the birth canal, and that's actually 300 to 500 million just to meet the egg cell. Alright, so the healthy sperms are programmed to swim and seek out the egg cell and fertilize it. So in here, I know this, 3 to 500 million sperms are a lot. So of course, probably people will be thinking that, that's a lot actually. It means that there's a higher chance of probability that the female will get pregnant because of that. But the truth is, not all 300 to 500 million sperms are actually healthy. So that's why in here, only healthy sperms who are very mobile, very healthy. It has a very actually, it depends on the sperm morphology as well, but the healthier ones are the ones who actually meet the egg cell. And out of the millions of sperms, only about 50 of them will be able to come close to the egg cell. So in here, from the 300 to 500 million sperms, only 50 of them will actually have the privilege to meet the egg cell. Okay, I meant it to be a privilege because it's actually a privilege because they are the ones that are healthy and they were the ones who are resilient enough to survive the environment in the female reproductive system. And the sperms will release enzyme that dissolves the jelly-like coating of the egg cell. So when the sperm reaches the egg cell, the sperm will actually release a jelly-like substance that this will actually the one that will dissolve the outer covering of the egg cell, and so they can actually swim further inside the egg cell. So that's what happens. So from that, that's actually the conception. When the egg, when the sperm cell meets the egg cell. So that's actually how the conception happens. So that's where also heredity started. And further while, so the egg is no passive participant. It actually embraces the lucky sperm cell as well. So in here, there's actually one theory that I've watched before, is that the egg cell actually is the one who's choosing which sperm cell that can actually penetrate her or penetrate the egg. It's actually a process of choosing. So that's why in here it says that the egg cell is not just an passive participant. She is actually very active. She's very she's choosing which sperm will penetrate her. So that's what actually happens. So to avoid penetration by more than one sperm, the egg produces brief electrical shocks on its surface, lasting about 30 seconds, followed by a hard protein coat. So in here, like what I've mentioned a while ago, so the egg cell does not, the egg cell actually has also its participation, because in here, once the egg cell has already chosen which sperm cell will penetrate her, she will now bring out an electric shock around her that will last about 30 seconds. So the other sperm cell will die, and the only one sperm cell that penetrates her will become the baby. So the sperm cell is held down on the egg's membrane while the coat rises above it, pushing all the sperms away. So that's what happened. So, and also the egg pulls the sperm inside itself and moves its nucleus to meet that of the sperm. So in here, so the egg now pulls the sperms inside of her. So the nucleus and the other elements of the sperm will now start the cell division. So now the conception happened. Now, like what I've mentioned a while ago, the cell division now began. So in here, we have the term chromosome. So chromosomes is very important because in here, chromosomes actually has a very function in heredity. So in here, it mentions here that fertilization, the union of the egg and the sperm, produces a single cell that is called the zygote, which contains 23 chromosome strands of genetic material contributed by the sperm and 23 chromosomes contributed by the egg. So once the conception happened, now the fertilization will start. So when we say fertilization, from its root word fertilize, so the egg and the sperm combined together will now travel to the uterus and then stick in the uterine wall. So once this happened, each chromosomes from each cell, yes, the egg cell and the sperm cell, will now unite. Each of them actually carries 23 chromosomes. So these chromosomes, each strand of chromosome composes of a genetic material. So chromosomes are made up of deoxyribonucleic acid, or DNA. Each segment of the DNA is a gene that is the basic unit of heredity. So like what I've mentioned a while ago, so there are 23 chromosomes. So each chromosome actually composes DNA, that each DNA is a compose has their heredity in it. So the DNA will now cling to the other DNAs with it, because of course the chromosomes, actually each of one of us composes of 46 chromosomes. It's That's because of the egg cell from our mom and the sperm cell from our dad each carries 23 chromosomes, and each chromosomes composes a DNA, and that DNA composes of the heredity. So that's why we are what we look like right now, and we are what we are right now because of that. So that's why we have 46 chromosomes. So to further explain that, so these 46 chromosomes provide programming for inherited characteristics like blood type, height, skin color, and so forth. The 46 chromosomes align in pairs, which consists of 23 pairs. So like what I've mentioned a while ago, so we have chromosomes from our parents, so 23 each. So now these chromosomes will now stick together, combine, and we will have now 23 pairs of chromosomes. So these 23 pairs of chromosomes, like what I've mentioned a while ago, that's why we have 46 each single individual chromosome, and when it paired up, it becomes now 26. So the 26 pairs of chromosomes are the ones that it's responsible on how we look, how we speak, our height, our color, our gesture, and also our behavior. So all eggs and 50% of all sperm contains sex chromosomes, while only the remaining 50% of the sperm cell have an Y sex chromosome. So here's the thing. So a mom's chromosome composes of X and X only. So that's XX. While yes, well, in simple terms, they only composes of an X, while a male chromosome composes of a Y. So in simple terms, in here, that's why our gender or our sex is depending on depending on the chromosomes, because if we got XX, it means that we are female, and then if we got XY, it means that we are going to be a male. Okay, so in here, a female or a mom carries X chromosomes only, so they're the ones who can carry that, while in the male counterpart, on the other hand, composes of X or Y. Okay, so they can give X or either Y chromosomes. So each one of us, I mean the mom and the dad, will contribute one chromosome, excuse me, one chromosome, which will now dictates what will be our sex when after birth. Well, actually, not just after birth, during the pregnancy, all throughout. So that's what happened. So now once that the chromosome, I mean the egg, okay, is now fertilized, we have now the term zygote. So a zygote with XX chromosome will become female, like what I've mentioned a while ago, and a zygote with XY chromosome will become a male. So the first 22 pairs are called autosomes, while the 23rd pair are called the sex chromosomes. They will determine the sex of gender of the developing baby. So like what I've mentioned a while ago, so we have 23 from the mom, 23 from the dad, and they will now meet each other. So now we as individuals will now have 23 chromosomes. So now the first from the first one to the 22nd, these are now called the autosomes, and the 23rd ones are the ones that will determine our sex or our gender. So like what I've mentioned, if you're an XX, you're female. If you're an XY, you're a male. So there are two types of genes: the dominant genes, which carry dominant traits, the stronger ones, and recessive genes, which carry recessive traits, which is the weaker ones. So incomplete dominance occurs when the dominant trait was not able to cover up the recessive trait. So in simple terms in here, for you to easily understand this portion, is that we have just two genes: the dominant, which is the strongest, and the recessive, which is the weaker ones. So we have the term codominance. So when does it happen? So codominance happens when two different dominant traits coexist in the offspring. as in the case of a combination of blood type A and blood type B, which results to having blood type AB. Some traits are called sex-linked traits rather, and these traits are only appear in a particular gender, which is males. So in here, in simple terms, codominance is that whenever there are two dominant traits, and they've joined together, we have now the term codominance. So in here, the two dominant traits now coexist with each other. So like just the example in here. So for example, the mom is the type A blood, while the dad is the type B blood. So the possibility of having type AB blood to the offspring is very likely as well. So in here, that's what codominance is all about. So there are actually what we have the term sex-linked traits. So sex-linked traits is these are traits that is dependent on the sex of the offspring. Okay, um, so there are traits that are just dependent on the sex. Okay, for example, certain traits like color blindness um, is a sex trait because it only appears to only one sex, which is the male. So, for example, in the family of five, like for us, I have three older brothers and and me and my younger sister. So for example, my dad is a color blinded person. For example, this is just an example. So the rest of my brothers, because of they are all males, they have this sex-linked trait that they have a color blinded vision as well. While me and my sister, since we're not of the same sex, we will not have the same condition. So that's what is sex-linked traits is all about. So the genetics cluster of traits that you have and are observable from outside is called the phenotype. So your genetic makeup observable and not is your genotype. So let's just remember this. So for you to easily understand the genetic the traits that you have, the genetic traits that you have, we have the phenotype and also the genotype. So the phenotype is the physical aspect, and then the genotype is all about what's internal and that is cannot be observed from the outside. So phenotype, physical, can be observed. Genotype, something that cannot be observed directly. So that's what genetic traits can be: a phenotype or a genotype. So now let's go and talk about the kinds of twins. So remember a while ago that I've mentioned that when an egg cell meets the sperm cell, that's when a baby or a conception happens, and soon to be a baby in the future. Well, in here, sometimes there are variations. That's why there are twins, or twins actually happen. So let's go to it one by one. So we have the identical or monozygotic twins and the fraternal or dizygotic twins. So let's go first to the identical or monozygotic twins. So let's read it first. So these are twins that develop from a single zygote that split. They look alike because they share almost the same genetic makeup. While fraternal or dizygotic twins, these are twins that develop from the simultaneous union of two pairs of egg and sperm cell. They do not share the same genetic makeup and may be of different gender, one male and one female. So let's go first to identical or monozygotic twins. So that's why it's called monozygotic, because it came from one. So it means that just one egg cell and one sperm cell. So that's one. That's why it's called monozygotic. It's just one. While dizygotic is composed of. That's why it's called dizygotic. It's double. So it composes of the because there has been union of two egg cell and two sperm cell. And yes, it can happen because that's because some ladies, because of their hereditary as well, I mean genetics as well, and the hereditary and it's part of their history of their family, they may have twins. And also some individuals who have experienced, like for example, some individuals actually miss their periods. I'm talking about females here. Some females actually miss their periods, and because of that, the ovulation, which is the releasing of egg cell from the ovaries, actually becomes delayed. And sometimes um, there are times that because of that delays, um, two of their ovaries actually releases an egg at the same time, and that's the time when a coitus or a sexual intercourse happened. These two eggs will actually meet a sperm cell, and the conception happens at the same time as well, and the fertilization happens at the same time. So the monozygotic and the dizygotic twins are actually these are both twins, but they're actually different because in monozygotic twins, in here it just came from one egg and one sperm. So or in short, it came from one zygote, because that's it. That's it's how it's called. One sperm and one egg cell meet together. That's already a zygote. So the zygote actually in here splits up. Okay, it splits up, and that's how the monozygotic twins happen. While in dizygotic twins, there's no splitting up. Okay, so unlike monozygotic twins, because they split up into two, the genetic material from one twin is also the same to the other twin. While in dizygotic twins, because there are no splitting ups, the genetic material from each of the twin actually differs a lot sometimes. So that's why other twins are like male and female, while the others are both female or both male. So that's all about twins. Let's talk about sex-linked abnormalities. So actually, like what I've mentioned a while ago, there are abnormalities, or we have traits that are actually dependent, right? For we have traits that are dependent depending on the sex. Well, in here we also have traits that are dependent to our sex, and not just traits that are dependent to sex, but also these are abnormalities. Now let's go to it one by one. First one is what we call Klinefelter syndrome, or the XXY. Remember a while ago I've mentioned that we have the 23rd chromosome, that this 23rd chromosome actually is the one that determines the sex, our sex, um, in the uterus. So in here, instead of having just two chromosomes, it has three. So we have the XXY chromosome. So just to remember, I just want you to remember that XX is a female baby in the future. Yes, in the female baby, and then XY is male. Well, here Klinefelter syndrome is an XXY, so it means that it has a Y in here, so it means a male. So Klinefelter syndrome actually occurs when a genetic male has an extra X chromosome, abnormal testes, no sperm production, reduced testosterone production, tall, poor muscular development, and enlarged breasts. So in here, in Klinefelter syndrome, in here, it's actually a male child or a male offspring that has just an extra X, and in here, the person grows. It has an abnormal testes, no sperm production, reduced testosterone levels. They're they're tall, poor muscular development, and also they have large breasts. So that's what Klinefelter syndrome. So there's a lot of explanation about this one as well, but that's what we're going to focus, because this is more on the physical, which is the phenotype, or focusing on the physical aspect. All right. So next we have the super male syndrome, which consists of XYY. So for you to easily remember this one is that we have the male, right? So that's the XY chromosome. Well, in here, it has an extra Y, so that's why it became super male chromosome. Super male syndrome. So in here, they're taller than normal males, and they're also below average intelligence. So they're taller but below in intelligence, below average. And we have the Turner's syndrome. Turner's syndrome. So the Turner syndrome is there is actually a missing chromosome. They're short, no menstruation, sexually underdeveloped females. So for you to remember if a syndrome is a male or a female, if that's male, it has an Y. If that's a female, it doesn't have a Y. So that's how for you to easily remember it. So in Turner syndrome, in here, instead of a female usually have an XX, right? So in here, it just have an XO because on the 23rd chromosome, it doesn't contain another chromosome to fill up that genetic material. So that's why it's XO. So O means there's none. Okay, so in here in Turner syndrome, the simplest explanation in here, and a female that that has a missing chromosome. So in here, because they have a missing chromosome, they are shorter, they don't menstruate, and they are also underdeveloped. With their reproductive system is underdeveloped. If we have the super male, we also have the super female syndrome. The super female in here, like what I've mentioned, female XX. So in here, the syndrome in here, it has 3X chromosomes. So that's why it's called super female chromosome. I mean, super female syndrome, rather. Okay. So they're actually, they look normal. However, they have intellectual deficit as well. So that's the super female syndrome. So if we have the sex-linked syndrome, we also have the non-sex-linked abnormalities. So let's go to it one by one. The first one is the Down syndrome or the trisomy 21. So in here, like what I've mentioned a while ago, we have chromosomes that are called autosomes. Again, autosomes are from the chromosome 1 down to 22, and the 23rd would be the sex chromosome, right? So in here, in trisomy 21, it consists of three chromosomes in the chromosome or autosome 21. So that's why it's called the Down syndrome. So Down syndrome, in here, an extra sex chromosome appeared in the 21st pair of autosome. So usually they're mentally retarded, sloping forehead, protruding tongue, short limbs, flattened nose, and oriental in appearance. So a lot of children right now who is enrolled or is currently in the special education is now currently diagnosed. Well, not most of them, but some of them are actually experiencing Down syndrome, and that's because of the trisomy 21. Next, we have the Edwards syndrome, or in here, the autosome 18 is the one that composes another sex chromosome. So again, an extra sex chromosome appeared in the 18th pair of autosomes. So in here, abnormally small mouth, malformed ears, elongated skull, clenched hands, short breastbone, and with congenital heart disease. So just to give you another information about non-sex linked chromosome, it was actually called non-sex because non-sex abnormalities, non-sex linked abnormalities, these are called non-sex linked abnormalities because it can appear either from male or female. So that's why in here, in Edwards syndrome, in here, another sex chromosome appeared on the 18th autosome, and then abnormalities, like what I've mentioned a while ago, appeared because of this. We have the Patau's syndrome. So the Patau syndrome, in here, an extra chromosome appeared on the 13th pair of autosome. In here, there are defects of eyes, nose, lips, ears, and forebrain. So forebrain, so that's really sad because now it just does not involve specifically just the physical. Well, sex-linked or non-sex-linked abnormalities, they have abnormalities that are also evident, not just physically, also behaviorally, and also their intellect. Well, in here, it was very much emphasized that they have an abnormality in their forebrain because it was now researched. Going back, so in here, in Patau syndrome, they have their one eye, they actually have one eye in extreme cases. So there has more than the normal number of fingers or toes as well. So Patau, that's called the Patau syndrome. So basically, those are the non-sex linked maladies. So I hope you enjoyed this clip. I mean this lesson. Please let me know if you have questions. So please just comment down below. So thank you for listening and see you on the next video. Bye for now.